You know that moment when you realize someone has finally pushed you too far, when patience runs out and you decide enough is enough. Well, for me, that moment came when I watched Isabella Jones's pristine white Lexus SUV dangling 10 feet in the air, suspended by the massive forks of my sugarcane loader, while she screamed bloody murder from the driver's seat. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but let me tell you, she absolutely deserved it. My name's David Wilson, and 72 hours before that beautiful moment of poetic justice, I was standing in front of 20 meters of destroyed fence, staring at tire tracks that led straight from Isabella's driveway to my property. She hadn't just accidentally bumped my fence. No, this HOA president had deliberately rammed her luxury SUV through it at 6 in the morning, climbed out with her phone, and started taking photos of my property like she owned the place. Her excuse: property inspection. On my land she had absolutely zero authority over. I dealt with Isabella's power trips for 6 months. The constant complaints, the threatening letters, the attempts to force me, a third-generation sugarcane farmer, to follow her precious HOA rules that didn't even apply to my property, but destroying my fence, creating fake evidence to try and steal my land, that crossed a line she couldn't uncross. So yeah, when I finally got her SUV suspended in the air like a trophy with Marcus, my retired cop buddy, standing nearby, confirming everything I did was completely legal, I'll admit it, I smiled. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you how Isabella Jones ended up dangling above my farm, begging to be let down, you need to understand the whole story, because this wasn't just about a fence. This was about a woman who thought power meant she could crush anyone in her path, and the moment she learned, she was dead wrong. But before we dive in, I've got a question for you. Where are you watching this from, and what time is it where you are? Drop your location and local time in the comments below. I love seeing where this story reaches, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, because trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Now let me take you back to where it all started. The Wilson family farm has been in my blood since before I could walk. 50 acres of prime Louisiana sugarcane stretching out under that hot southern sun, worked by 3 generations of Wilsons. My grandfather bought this land in 1952 with every penny he had, built it from nothing into something that could feed a family. My father expanded it, modernized it, turned it into a profitable operation. And when he passed 8 years ago, he left it to me with one instruction: don't let anyone take what we built. I've held on to those words through droughts, floods, market crashes, and equipment failures. But I never thought I'd need them to fight off a homeowners association president with a god complex. The farm sits on the eastern edge of what used to be rural farmland. But about 15 years ago, developers came in and built Magnolia Heights, one of those upscale residential communities with pristine lawns, identical mailboxes, and enough rules to make your head spin. You know the type: no cars in driveways, overnight grass height must be between 2.5 and 3 inches, fence colors must be from an approved pallet. The whole 9 yards. Here's the thing though, my farm predates that entire neighborhood by half a century. I was here first. And unlike the folks who bought into Magnolia Heights, I never signed their covenant, never joined their HOA, never agreed to follow a single one of their rules. My property line runs right along their western border, but that line might as well be a national boundary for all the authority they have over my land. Most of my neighbors in Magnolia Heights understood that. Good people, honestly. They'd wave when they drove past, sometimes stop to buy fresh sugarcane in the fall, ask questions about farming. We coexisted just fine for years. Then Isabella Jones bought the corner lot property 3 years ago. Isabella was 52, impeccably dressed, drove that white Lexus RX like it was a throne on wheels. She had this way of looking at you: chin, slightly raised eyes narrowed like she was mentally calculating your net worth and finding you wanting. Within 6 months of moving in, she'd gotten herself elected HOA president. And from what I heard through the grapevine, she ran that position like a military dictatorship. The trouble started about 6 months before the fence incident. I was out spreading fertilizer on the south field, organic stuff, but yeah, it has a smell, when Isabella came marching onto my property in heels and a pantsuit, phone in hand, already mid-complaint. "Mr. Wilson, this odor is unacceptable," she announced, like she was handing down a court order. "The residents of Magnolia Heights have a right to enjoy their properties without this assault on their senses." I'd stopped the spreader, wiped my hands, and walked over. "Ma'am, I appreciate the feedback, but this is a working farm. Has been since 1952. Fertilizer is part of farming. I use the organic stuff, apply it during approved hours, follow all county regulations. I don't care about county regulations. I care about HOA standards, and this violates our air quality provisions." That's when I first explained it to her, polite as I could manage. "Mrs. Jones, my property isn't part of your HOA. Never has been. Your rules don't apply here. The look on her face like I'd slapped her should have been my first warning. People who aren't used to hearing no don't handle it well. She'd left that day, but the letters started the next week. Formal complaints about noise from my equipment, about my fence being aesthetically inconsistent with neighborhood standards, about my workers' trucks being commercial vehicles that violated parking restrictions, never mind they were parked on my property. I responded to each one the same way, politely, professionally, with copies of my property deed and a gentle reminder that HOA covenants don't extend to land that never joined the HOA. Isabella escalated. She called the sheriff's department twice, claiming I was violating noise ordinances. Both times deputies came out, measured my equipment noise, confirmed I was well within legal limits, and left. She sent her lawyer with a letter threatening legal action. My lawyer sent back a response so thoroughly documented that we never heard from her attorney again. Then came the HOA meeting, the one I heard about from Tom, my neighbor, who actually liked living in Magnolia Heights but thought Isabella was drunk on power. Apparently she dedicated 30 minutes of the monthly meeting to the farm problem, complete with a slideshow of photos of my property taken from the road. She'd proposed that the HOA collectively sue me to force compliance with their aesthetic standards. Tom said 3 board members voted it down immediately, calling it a waste of money and legally groundless. Isabella had been furious. Looking back, I should have seen the fence attack coming. When people like Isabella can't win through official channels, they get creative. And by creative I mean destructive, but I didn't see it. I just kept working my land, treating my neighbors with respect, and hoping Isabella would eventually find a new target for her control issues. I was wrong about that last part. Monday, October 6th. I'll remember that date for the rest of my life. I woke up at 5:30, like always, made coffee, and headed out to check the irrigation system in the north field. The sun was just starting to paint the sky that soft purple-pink color you only get in early fall. Everything seemed normal until I walked around the east side of the property and saw it. 20 meters of my wooden fence, the one that ran along the border with Magnolia Heights, was destroyed. Not damaged, destroyed. Posts snapped off at ground-level boards, scattered like matchsticks, wire fencing torn and twisted. And running straight through the middle of the wreckage were tire tracks, wide, deep, fresh tracks from a vehicle that had come from the direction of Isabella's house, punched through my fence, gone about 15 feet onto my property, then backed out the same way. My first thought was an accident. Some drunk driver maybe who'd lost control and fled the scene. It happens out here more than you'd think. Then I saw the footprints. Small shoes, probably women's, walking from where the vehicle had stopped around my property for maybe 20 feet, then back to the tire tracks. Deliberate, controlled. Someone had driven through my fence, gotten out, walked around and left. I pulled out my phone and called the sheriff's office. While I waited for a deputy, I walked back to my equipment barn where I keep the security system recorder. I'd installed cameras 6 months ago, right after Isabella's harassment started, actually. Best investment I ever made. I pulled up the footage from 6:00 a.m. that morning, and what I saw made my blood run cold. At 6:04 a.m., a white Lexus SUV came into frame, moving slowly along the road. It paused for maybe 10 seconds, then suddenly accelerated straight toward my fence. The impact scattered boards everywhere. The SUV pushed forward another 15 feet, stopped, and the driver's door opened. Out stepped Isabella Jones, wearing jeans and a jacket, phone in hand. She walked around the front of her vehicle, photographing the damage. Then, and this is what really got me, she walked onto my property, taking photos of my equipment, shed my fence line, my fields, all while talking to herself. I couldn't hear the audio, but her mouth was moving constantly like she was narrating. After about 5 minutes, she got back in her SUV, backed carefully through the hole she'd created, and drove away. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, calculated destruction, and she documented it herself, creating some kind of narrative in her head about what she was doing. The deputy arrived 20 minutes later, young guy named Rodriguez who'd been out to my farm before for Isabella's noise complaints. I showed him the video. His jaw actually dropped. "Mr. Wilson, that's vandalism, destruction of property, trespassing. You want to press charges?" "Absolutely." He took my statement, photographed the damage, copied the video file, and said he'd be filing a report for the district attorney. He estimated the damage at around $3,000. Not devastating, but not nothing either. Then, at 8:17 a.m., my email dinged. The sender was hoa.magnoliaheights@gmail.com, sent to my business address that was public record. The subject line read, "Notice of violation, Immediate action required. I opened it, and I swear I felt my hand start to shake. Dear Mr. Wilson, during a routine boundary inspection this morning, the Magnolia Heights HOA has determined that your fence structure along the eastern property line is encroaching upon public sidewalk easement by approximately 18 to 24 inches along a 60-foot section. This constitutes a violation of County Code 47.3.2 regarding obstruction of public access. Attached, you will find photographic evidence of this violation taken during our inspection. Per HOA authority, granted by county easement regulations, you are hereby required to 1. Remove the encroaching fence structure within 48 hours. 2. Restore the public easement to county standards. 3. Submit plans for replacement fencing that complies with setback requirements. Failure to comply will result in a fine of $5,000 and potential legal action to compel removal at your expense. Regards, Isabella Jones, President, Magnolia Heights HOA. Attached were a dozen photos. Photos Isabella had taken that morning while standing on my property after driving through my fence. Photos showing my fence line from angles that made it look like it was somehow over the property line. Photos that were complete fiction. I pulled out my property survey, the one I'd had professionally done 3 years ago when I refinanced. My fence was exactly where it should be, 3 feet inside my property line. The sidewalk Isabella referenced, that was a gravel walking path that ran along the inside of Magnolia Heights. It was on their property, not mine, and certainly not a public easement. She destroyed my fence, trespassed on my land to take fake evidence. Photos then sent me a threatening letter demanding I remove the fence she'd just vandalized under a completely fabricated legal theory. It was fraud. It was extortion. And suddenly, I understood her plan. Isabella couldn't force me to follow HOA rules legally. So she was creating a false crisis, discovering a violation that didn't exist, using her own destruction as proof of the problem, then demanding I remove my fence entirely. Once the fence was gone, she'd probably claim the land had reverted to HOA control, or push for a boundary dispute, or find some other angle to chip away at my property. This wasn't about aesthetics or noise complaints anymore. This was about taking my land. I called my lawyer, Bill Henderson, who'd handled my father's estate and knew this property inside and out. I sent him the email, the video, the survey, everything. He called me back in 10 minutes. David, I don't even have words. She's committed about 4 crimes before breakfast and implicated herself in writing. But here's my advice. Let me send a cease and desist, document everything, and we'll file a civil suit for damages plus a restraining order. How long will that take? 6 months, maybe more. Courts are backed up. 6 months of Isabella thinking she could get away with this. 6 months of her plotting the next attack. 6 months of playing defense while she played offense. Bill, I appreciate that. File whatever you need to file, but I need to handle this differently first. David, don't do anything stupid. I hung up and sat there in my kitchen looking out at my grandfather's land, my father's legacy, my life's work. And I thought about that instruction my dad left me. Don't let anyone take what we built. Isabella thought I was just some simple farmer who'd roll over when pushed. She thought power and money and HOA authority made her untouchable. It was time to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. I spent that whole Monday afternoon thinking. Not angry thinking, calculated thinking. The kind my grandfather used to do when he was planning out crop rotations or equipment purchases. Strategic. Because here's what I knew: Isabella had committed crimes. I had evidence. Law enforcement was involved. But I also knew how these things worked. She'd get a fine, maybe probation, pay for my fence, and walk away thinking she'd just made a minor miscalculation. She wouldn't learn anything. And more importantly, she wouldn't stop. People like Isabella, they don't stop until they face real consequences. Not legal consequences, personal consequences. The kind that make you question every decision that led to that moment. That evening, I called Marcus Hayes. Marcus had been a sheriff's deputy for 28 years, before retiring, and we'd known each other since high school. Straight shooter by the book guy, but he understood that sometimes the book didn't cover every situation. Marcus, I need your perspective on something, legally speaking. I explained the situation, the fence, the video, Isabella's email, all of it. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Dave, you've got her dead to rights on criminal charges. Rodriguez is a good kid. He'll write a solid report. But you're right that she'll wiggle out with minimal damage. People like her always do. He paused. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about property rights. About what I'm legally allowed to do on my own land if someone's, say, blocking my agricultural operations. Marcus chuckled. You planning what I think you're planning, maybe. But I need to know it's legal. Okay, here's the thing. Louisiana property law is pretty clear. You have the right to operate your agricultural business on your agricultural property. If a vehicle is parked on your land without permission and it's interfering with your operations, you have the right to move it. Towing it, relocating it to a non-interfering position that's within your rights, as long as you're not damaging the vehicle and it's genuinely in your way. And if that vehicle happens to be moved by, say, farm equipment is a legal means of moving obstacles on a farm. I've seen cases where tractors moved cars out of fields, forklifts, relocated vehicles blocking barn access. As long as the vehicle owner is trespassing or parked illegally on your property, you're protected. My mind was already working through the logistics. What if the owner is in the vehicle when it's moved? Even better, actually. Shows you gave them opportunity to move it themselves and they refused. Just make sure you've got witnesses and cameras running. Always do. Dave, whatever you're planning, just remember it's only legal if they're actually on your property illegally. You can't lure someone onto your land under false pretenses. What if they come onto my land voluntarily, say for a meeting they requested, then they're there of their own free will, and if they park somewhere stupid, well, that's on them. We talked for another 20 minutes going over the specifics. When I hung up, I had the bones of a plan. Next, I called Dave Reeves, different Dave. We called him Engineer Dave to avoid confusion. Dave worked for the county planning department, and more importantly, he was obsessive about property records and surveys. Dave, I need you to do me a favor. Pull every single document related to the Magnolia Heights development and the properties bordering my farm, especially Lot 47 Isabella Jones's property. Looking for something specific: boundary acknowledgments, easement agreements, anything that shows what she agreed to when she bought that property. Give me a day. I'll dig through the files. Tuesday morning, Engineer Dave called back. David, you're going to love this. When Magnolia Heights was developed, the county required the developer to get boundary acknowledgement agreements from all adjacent property owners. Your father signed one in 2010 confirming the exact boundary line. And here's the kicker. Every property owner in Magnolia Heights, as part of their purchase agreement, had to sign a document acknowledging the existing boundaries of adjacent properties, including yours. Isabella signed this. Her signature is right here on the 2018 filing. She explicitly acknowledged the Wilson property boundary as legally established and agreed not to dispute it. That was it. That was the ammunition I needed. I spent Tuesday evening setting up. I positioned 2 additional cameras with clear views of the equipment yard and storage area. I charged my phone and my backup phone. I prepped the Caterpillar TH414C, my sugarcane loader, a beast of a machine with forks that could lift 8 tons of bundled cane. Then I composed an email: Mrs. Jones, I received your notice regarding alleged fence violations. I strongly dispute your claims and have documentation proving my fence is entirely on my property and violates no codes or easements. However, in the interest of neighborly relations, I'm willing to meet with you and any HOA representatives to review the boundary survey and resolve this matter directly. I propose we meet at my farm this Thursday, October 9th at 2:00 p.m. We can walk the property line together with our respective documentation. Please confirm your attendance. I believe a face-to-face discussion will clear up this misunderstanding. Sincerely, David Wilson. It was perfect bait. I was offering her exactly what she wanted, a chance to confront me on her terms with witnesses to pressure me into backing down. She'd see it as an opportunity to dominate me in person. She took it. Her response came Wednesday morning: Mr. Wilson, I will attend with 2 HOA board members. We expect your full cooperation and documentation. This meeting will determine whether we proceed with legal action. Thursday at 2:00 p.m. I had less than 48 hours to prepare. I called Marcus. It's on. Thursday afternoon. Can you be here? Wouldn't miss it. I called Engineer Dave. Bring those documents Thursday. I want them in a folder, official looking. Done. Wednesday afternoon, I walked my property, marking out exactly where I'd position myself, where the cameras would have the best angles, where the loader would be parked for routine operations. I put up a fresh sign in the equipment yard: active operations area, no unauthorized parking, vehicles will be relocated. County code required I post warnings in areas where I operated heavy machinery. I was just following the law. That night I barely slept, not from nerves, from anticipation, because I knew Isabella. She'd come in hot, aggressive, confident. She'd park wherever she wanted, probably right in the middle of my workspace, because she didn't respect boundaries. And when she did, I'd teach her what boundaries really meant. Thursday, October 9th, 1:45 p.m. Everything was ready. The Caterpillar was parked near the equipment shed, keys in the ignition. Jorge, my most experienced equipment operator standing by. Marcus was sitting in his truck at the edge of my property, looking casual but recording everything on his dashboard camera. Engineer Dave was in my kitchen, the folder of documents on the table, his own phone ready to record. I'd even mowed the grass that morning. Wanted everything to look professional. At 1:58 p.m., a white Lexus SUV came up my driveway, followed by a silver Honda Accord. My security camera caught them both as they approached the farmhouse. Isabella parked exactly where I knew she would, right in the middle of the equipment yard, directly in front of the barn entrance, 5 feet from the no parking sign. The audacity was almost beautiful. 2 people got out of the Honda, Mark Stevens and Carol Reed, both HOA board members I recognized from neighborhood events. Decent people who looked distinctly uncomfortable. Isabella emerged from her Lexus wearing a cream-colored pantsuit and heels, carrying a leather portfolio like she was attending a corporate merger. I walked out to meet them, keeping my expression neutral. Mrs. Jones, Mr. Stevens, Mrs. Reed, thanks for coming. Isabella didn't bother with pleasantries. Mr. Wilson, we're here to discuss your compliance with the fence violation notice. I trust you've prepared the removal plan. Actually, I've prepared documentation proving there is no violation. If you'll come inside, I've got everything laid out. I'd prefer to inspect the fence line first, Isabella said, gesturing toward the eastern boundary. Since that's the actual issue, of course. But Mrs. Jones, you'll need to move your vehicle first. It's parked in an active operations area. She barely glanced at her Lexus. It's fine where it is. This won't take long. Ma'am, that's a designated work zone. I've got equipment moving in and out, and Mr. Wilson, she cut me off, voice sharp as glass. I'll park wherever I need to park to conduct official HOA business. Now shall we examine the fence line, or are you going to waste more time with irrelevant complaints? Mark and Carol looked at each other. Mark cleared his throat. Isabella, maybe we should just move the car. It'll take 30 seconds. The car is fine, Mark. Mr. Wilson is stalling. She turned back to me. The fence. Now. I held up my hands in surrender. Your choice. But I did warn you. We walked toward the eastern boundary, me, leading Isabella right behind me, practically radiating smugness, Mark and Carol trailing uncomfortably. As we walked, I asked Mrs. Jones, when you inspected the fence Monday morning, did you bring a surveyor? She stiffened slightly. I conducted a visual inspection based on HOA records. Visual inspection at 6:00 a.m. After you drove your vehicle through my fence. She stopped walking. I have no idea what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone, opened the video file, and turned it toward her. Her face went from tan to white as she watched herself ram through the fence, step out and walk around photographing. That's edited. Fake? You can't. It's time-stamped high definition and already in the hands of the sheriff's department. Deputy Rodriguez filed a criminal report Monday afternoon. Mark stepped forward, staring at the phone. Isabella, did you actually drive through his fence? Of course not. This is obviously manipulated. To ma'am, I interrupted. I've also got your email from Monday claiming you discovered a violation during a routine inspection. Same morning as this video. You want to explain how you inspected a fence you'd just destroyed? Her mouth opened and closed. Carol actually took a step back, like she wanted to distance herself from what was happening. Isabella recovered switching tactics. This is a distraction from the real issue, which is your fence's encroachment on public easement. I have photographic evidence. Evidence you took while trespassing on my property after committing vandalism. Yeah, I saw those photos. Interesting angles you chose. Almost like you were trying to make my fence look like it was in the wrong spot. I pulled out a folded document. This is my property survey from 2021. Professionally done, filed with the county. Shows my fence is 3 feet inside my property line. No encroachment, no violation. Surveys can be wrong. This one isn't. And here's the thing, Mrs. Jones. When you bought your property in 2018, you signed a boundary acknowledgement agreement. You specifically agreed that the Wilson property boundary was legally established and that you wouldn't dispute it. That hit her like a slap. I signed no such engineer. Dave has the document in my kitchen. Your signature right there on the county filing. You acknowledged my boundary. Then, 6 years later, you decided to try and change it by destroying my fence and fabricating a violation. The silence that followed was delicious. Mark broke it. Isabella, if you signed a boundary acknowledgement, you can't claim a violation on that same boundary. We could be liable for harassment. Mark, be quiet. This man is clearly, what I am, I said calmly, is done being harassed. You've spent 6 months trying to force me to follow HOA rules that don't apply to me. When that didn't work, you destroyed my property and tried to frame it as a code violation. and now you're on my land continuing to make false accusations." Isabella's eyes narrowed. "Are you threatening me?" "No, ma'am. I'm informing you. This meeting is over. I'd like you to leave my property. Not until we resolve Mrs. Jones, you are trespassing. Leave. Now." She smiled. Actually smiled. "Make me." That's when I knew I had her. I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Jorge, yeah, we've got a vehicle blocking the equipment yard. White Lexus. Owner is refusing to move it. Can you relocate it per our standard protocol?" From across the yard, Jorge gave a thumbs up and climbed into the Caterpillar. Isabella's smile vanished. "What do you think you're—" The loader's engine roared to life, a deep diesel rumble that echoed across the farm. Jorge expertly maneuvered it toward the Lexus, the massive forks lowered to ground level. "Mr. Wilson, if you touch my vehicle, I'm not touching it. My employee is relocating an illegally parked vehicle that's obstructing agricultural operations. Completely legal on private property. This is insane. Mark Carroll, call the police." Mark pulled out his phone, but he was watching the Caterpillar with something that looked like fascination. Jorge slid the forks under the Lexus's frame with the precision of a surgeon exactly where the vehicle's lift points were. The hydraulics hissed, and slowly, almost gently, the white SUV rose off the ground. 6 inches, 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet. Isabella's scream could probably be heard in Baton Rouge. Put down my car right." Now Isabella was running toward the Caterpillar heels, clicking on the concrete arms, waving like she could somehow stop 3 tons of machinery through sheer force of will. The Lexus continued rising 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet off the ground, perfectly balanced on the loader's forks. Jorge looked at me. I gave him a nod. He stopped the lift at about 8 feet high enough to make a point low enough to be safe. "Mr. Wilson, this is destruction of property. This is theft. This is property management," I said calmly. "Your vehicle was parked in an active work zone, clearly marked with no parking signage. You refused to move it despite multiple warnings. Under Louisiana property law, I have the right to relocate obstacles that interfere with agricultural operations on my land. That's my car that's parked illegally on my property." I gestured to the large yellow sign 10 feet away. "Active operations area. No unauthorized parking. Vehicles will be relocated." I didn't see any sign. Willful ignorance isn't a legal defense, Mrs. Jones. The Caterpillar began moving, carrying the Lexus through the air like a toy. Jorge drove it slowly across the equipment yard toward an empty section of packed dirt. Isabella chased after it, still screaming, her professional composure completely shattered. Mark and Carol stood frozen, watching. Mark had his phone out recording. I couldn't tell if he was documenting evidence or just capturing something he knew would be legendary. Jorge positioned the Lexus over the center of the empty lot and stopped. The SUV sat there, suspended, its white paint gleaming in the afternoon sunday. Through the windows, I could see Isabella's leather portfolio still sitting on the passenger seat, her phone in the cup holder, everything exactly as she'd left it. "Bring it down." Isabella was practically hyperventilating. "This is kidnapping. Your vehicle isn't a person, so it can't be kidnapped. It's being temporarily relocated for safety reasons." She spun toward Mark. "Call the police. Do it." Now Mark looked at his phone, then at me, then at Isabella. Actually, I'm not sure they'll call them," he dialed. While he was on the phone, a pickup truck rolled up my driveway, Marcus getting out with his retired deputy badge, still clipped to his belt, and a camera around his neck. He walked over casually like he just happened to be in the neighborhood. "Afternoon, David. Everything okay here? Hey, Marcus. Just moving an illegally parked vehicle. You remember Mrs. Jones, right?" Isabella zeroed in on him. "Officer, this man has illegally seized my vehicle. I demand you arrest him immediately." Marcus looked up at the Lexus, then at the no parking signs, then at Isabella. "Ma'am, I'm retired so I can't arrest anybody. But from what I can see, this looks like a property owner managing his land." "Managing. He's holding my car hostage. Is your car on his property? I was invited here for a meeting. And did you park in a designated no parking zone after being warned to move?" she sputtered. "That's the sign. Is his fault?" Mark finished his phone call and walked over, looking deeply uncomfortable. "The police are sending someone," they said. "They said they'd take statements from everyone." "Perfect," I said. "I've got all my documentation ready. Video of Mrs. Jones destroying my fence Monday morning, her admission in writing that she conducted an inspection the same day my property survey, her signed boundary acknowledgement from 2018. Should be an easy case." Isabella's eyes went wild. You can't show them that video is inadmissible. I never gave permission to be recorded on my private property with my security system. Yeah, actually, that's completely legal. Louisiana is a one-party consent state for recording anyway. A county sheriff's cruiser pulled into the driveway. Deputy Rodriguez stepped out, took one look at the Lexus suspended in midair, and I swear I saw him fight back a smile. Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Jones, someone want to explain this situation? Before I could answer, Isabella launched into a tirade. Deputy, this man has destroyed my property, held me against my will, and is refusing to return my vehicle. I want him arrested for assault, theft, vandalism, and Mrs. Jones. Rodriguez interrupted gently. Is that your vehicle up there? Yes. And where exactly was it parked when Mr. Wilson relocated it? She pointed to the equipment yard. Right there. Where I had every right to park for our scheduled meeting, Rodriguez walked over to the spot examining the clearly visible no parking signs. He pulled out his notepad. Ma'am, did you see these signs when you parked? That's irrelevant. He can't just— It's extremely relevant, actually. Did you or did you not park in a marked no parking zone on private property? Silence. Rodriguez turned to me. Mr. Wilson, why did you relocate the vehicle? It was blocking my equipment barn during active operations. I politely asked Mrs. Jones multiple times to move it. She refused and told me, and I quote, make me. So I did. The vehicle hasn't been damaged. Jorge is my best operator and he's certified on the loader. I documented the entire process on camera to protect myself. Makes sense. Rodriguez made notes. And Mrs. Jones, you're here because he's violating HOA easement regulations with his fence. This property isn't in your HOA though, correct? Her mouth snapped shut. Rodriguez looked at me. Is this about that fence vandalism report from Monday? The very same. Mrs. Jones destroyed 20 meters of my fence Monday morning. I've got video evidence I submitted with that report. Then she sent me an email claiming my fence violates codes and demanding I remove it. When I invited her here to discuss it with documentation, she saw it as an opportunity to pressure me. Instead, she got property law enforced. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Mrs. Jones, I'm going to need you to come down to the station for questioning regarding the Monday incident. The DA is reviewing charges for criminal mischief and trespassing. This is absurd. I am a respected member of this community. I am the HOA president. Ma'am, your community position doesn't exempt you from property laws. He looked up at the Lexus. Mr. Wilson, can you lower the vehicle so Mrs. Jones can drive it to the station? Of course, deputy. I signaled Jorge, who carefully lowered the Lexus back to the ground, positioning it gently on all four wheels. Not a scratch on it. Jorge climbed out of the Caterpillar and handed me a thumbs up. Isabella practically ran to her vehicle, checking it over for damage, finding none because we hadn't damaged it. She climbed in, started the engine, and sat there gripping the steering wheel, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. Rodriguez walked over to her window. Mrs. Jones, I'll follow you to the station. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She didn't respond, just put the car in gear and drove toward the exit tires, spitting gravel. As she disappeared down the driveway, Mark approached me. Mr. Wilson the first. I apologize. I had no idea she'd done any of this. The fence video, the fake violation claim. The board was never informed. I figured as much. You and Carol seem like reasonable people. Carol joined us looking mortified. We're going to call an emergency board meeting. This is completely unacceptable. Isabella represented that your fence was a legitimate code violation and we trusted her. I appreciate that. Mark hesitated. For what it's worth, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. The look on her face when her car started going up, he actually laughed. I know I shouldn't enjoy it, but my God. Even Carol cracked a smile. She's been impossible for months. Every meeting is about her priorities, her vision, her rules. Maybe this will finally teach her some humility. Marcus walked over after they left grinning. Dave, I've been in law enforcement for 3 decades, and that was the most legally perfect screw you I've ever witnessed. Stayed inside the law completely. You gave warnings she refused. You relocated the obstruction. Clean as a whistle. Plus, with that Monday video and her written admission, she's cooked. Engineer Dave came out of the house, still holding the folder of documents. Did you even need these? The threat of them was enough. He laughed. Next time you need county records pulled for psychological warfare, I'm your guy. That evening, after everyone had left, I walked my property line. The broken fence. The equipment yard where the Lexus had Saturday. The loader now parked and quiet. I thought about Isabella's face when she realized I'd actually done it. When her power, her authority, her confidence all evaporated because she'd finally encountered someone who wouldn't bend. And I smiled. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Deputy Rodriguez kept me updated on the investigation. The DA reviewed the security footage, Isabella's email, and my property records, and filed formal charges: criminal mischief for the fence destruction, criminal trespass, and filing a false report for her claim to the sheriff's department that my fence violated code when she knew it didn't. Isabella's lawyer tried to get the charges dismissed, arguing that she was acting in her capacity as HOA president investigating a legitimate complaint. That argument collapsed when the prosecutor introduced her signed 2018 boundary acknowledgement the document engineer Dave had found. She'd known the boundary was legal and undisputed, yet deliberately destroyed my fence and lied about code violations. The criminal case was headed for trial, but before it got that far, Isabella took a plea deal: 6 months probation, mandatory anger management classes, $3, 0 inches restitution for my fence, and a formal admission of wrongdoing. The real consequences, though, came from Magnolia Heights itself. 3 days after the Lexus incident, as it became known in the neighborhood, Mark Stevens called me. "David, I wanted to give you a heads up. We're holding an emergency HOA board meeting tonight. About Isabella. I appreciate the information. You should also know," word got out, "about what she did. Your neighbor Tom, he's been telling people. And once people heard, they started talking about their own experiences with Isabella. That meeting happened on a rainy Thursday evening. I wasn't there, it was HOA members only, but Tom gave me the full rundown the next day. Apparently Isabella showed up, expecting to defend herself against baseless accusations. Instead, she walked into a room of 36 homeowners, many of whom stood up to share stories. Mrs. Patterson from Lot 12, Isabella had fined her $500 for having the wrong shade of mailbox, paint a color that was on the approved list when Mrs. Patterson painted it, but which Isabella had removed from the list retroactively. The Kowalskis from Lot 28, Isabella had threatened to sue them because their teenage son's basketball hoop was visible from the street. She demanded they remove it or face daily fines. They'd spent $1,200 on landscaping to block the view instead. Mr. Harrison from Lot 33, Isabella had tried to prevent him from installing solar panels, claiming they were aesthetically inconsistent. When he pointed out that state law protected solar installation rights, she'd retaliated by citing him for having grass that was 3.2 inches tall, 0.2 inches over the HOA limit. Story after story. 15 homeowners total, all documenting Isabella's petty tyrannies, selective enforcement, and weaponization of HOA rules. Then engineer Dave presented the evidence from my case, the video, the fraudulent email, the boundary document she'd signed. He explained that Isabella had knowingly destroyed my property and falsified a violation claim, putting the entire HOA at risk of a massive lawsuit. The vote to remove her as president wasn't even close. 34 inches favored 2 abstaining people who'd left early, 0 opposed. Isabella had stood up, said, "You're all fools who don't understand what I've done for this community," and walked out. The board immediately elected Carol Reed as interim president. Her first act was to contact me with a formal apology. She showed up at my farm on a Saturday morning with a handwritten letter from the board and a basket of local honey and preserves. "Mr. Wilson, on behalf of Magnolia Heights, I am deeply sorry for Isabella's actions and for any implication that the HOA supported her harassment of you. We hope we can rebuild a positive relationship with our neighbor." I accepted graciously. "Carol, I've never had a problem with the HOA as an organization or with the folks who live in Magnolia Heights. This was always about one person who couldn't accept that her authority had limits. Well, that person is no longer in a position to abuse her authority, and we're reviewing every fine and citation she's issued in the past 2 years to make sure there weren't other irregularities. They found plenty. Turned out Isabella had been pocketing some of the fine money instead of depositing it in the HOA account. That triggered a financial audit which revealed she'd also been billing personal expenses to the HOA, her car, detailing her landscaper, even a vacation she'd claimed was HOA conference travel. The board filed a civil suit against her for embezzlement and fraud. Between that lawsuit and my potential claim for the fence damage plus punitive damages for her fraudulent violation claim, Isabella was looking at serious financial consequences. And then came the twist I never saw coming. 3 weeks after the board meeting, I got a call from a real estate agent. "Mr. Wilson, my name is Patricia Gomez. I represent the owner of 1247 Magnolia Heights Drive, Isabella Jones property. She's directed me to contact you about a potential purchase. Purchase of what your property, Mrs. Jones, would like to make an offer on your farm." I actually laughed out loud. "You're joking." I No, sir. She's authorized me to offer $2.5 million for your 50 acres. That was well above market value for agricultural land. Let me guess. She wants to subdivide it for development. I'm not privy to her plans, but yes, that would be the logical use. Miss Gomez, please tell Mrs. Jones that my property is not for sale at any price. And also tell her that if she ever contacts me again directly or through a representative, I will pursue a restraining order for harassment. There was a pause. I'll relay that message. 2 days later, a different real estate agent contacted me, this one representing a development company. They wanted to make an anonymous offer of $3 million for my farm. I checked the company's registration. One of the board members was Isabella's husband. She was still trying to get my land just through proxies now. I had my lawyer send a cease and desist to the development company, to Isabella personally, and to anyone associated with either. The offer stopped. A month later, a for sale sign appeared in front of Isabella's house. Tom confirmed it. She's moving. Apparently, no one in the neighborhood will talk to her anymore. She got kicked out of her book club, her yoga class, everything. It's like she's been socially exiled. The house sold in 6 weeks to a nice young couple with 2 kids. I brought them a basket of fresh sugarcane as a welcome gift. They told me the previous owner had left in a hurry, barely saying goodbye to anyone. 5 months after the fence incident, I ran into Mark at the hardware store. He was buying mulch for his garden. David housed the farm. Good. New fence is even better than the old one. Reinforced posts, better wire. If anyone tries to drive through it again, their vehicle won't make it. He laughed. I don't think you'll have that problem. New HOA president is Carol, and she's been great. Reasonable rules, fair enforcement, actually listening to homeowners. It's like night and day. Glad to hear it. You know the crazy part. The neighborhood is happier now than it's been in years. People are talking to each other again, helping each other. We had a block party last month, first one since Isabella took over. It's like we remembered we're supposed to be a community, not subjects of a dictatorship. That's what it should be. He shifted the bags of mulch in his cart. I wanted to thank you, actually, for standing up to her. A lot of us were intimidated. We didn't think we could fight back. Seeing you do it, seeing that she could be held accountable, it changed something. You gave people permission to say no. I hadn't thought about it that way. I was just protecting my land. Yeah, but you showed the rest of us how to protect ours. That matters. After he left, I sat in my truck for a while thinking about what he'd said. Isabella had spent so much energy trying to control things that weren't hers to control. My land, my business, my choices. And in the end, all that effort hadn't gotten her what she wanted. It had cost her everything she had. The new fence went up in early November. I hired a professional crew this time, used treated lumber that would last 30 years, installed LED motion lights every 20 feet, and added 3 more security cameras. The total cost was $8,500, which Isabella's restitution payment covered with $5,500 left over. I used that money to pave the driveway I'd been putting off for 2 years. So in a weird way, Isabella had funded improvements to the very property she'd tried to diminish. The criminal case resolved in December. Isabella completed her probation terms, paid all fines and restitution, and attended the court-mandated anger management program. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to a condo in Baton Rouge, no HOA there, ironically. Just a building management company she had no control over. The civil lawsuit from the HOA board settled out of court. Isabella repaid $47, 0 inches embezzled funds, and improper charges. Several homeowners she'd illegally fined also got refunds. By January, it was like she'd never existed. The new HOA board, under Carol's leadership, revised the covenant to add oversight provisions, term limits for officers, and a formal appeal process for violations. They asked me to review the sections about boundary properties to make sure there were no overreach issues. I helped them write language that was fair to everyone. The HOA could make requests, but not demands of adjacent properties. All boundary disputes required professional surveys before any action, and officers who acted outside their authority could be held personally liable. Basically, the Isabella Prevention Act, Carol joked when we finished. But the biggest change was in the community itself. My relationship with Magnolia Heights went from antagonistic to collaborative. Homeowners started stopping by the farm not to complain but to visit. Parents brought kids to see how sugarcane grows. A retired couple asked if they could walk their dog along my fence line in the mornings. I said yes, and they brought me coffee every Saturday as thanks. In March, the elementary school asked if I'd do a field trip presentation about agriculture. I brought stalks of sugarcane, showed the kids how we harvest and process it, explained why farms matter. One little girl asked Mr. Wilson, "Why do you love your farm so much?" I thought about my grandfather buying this land with everything he had. My father expanding it, protecting it, passing it to me with that one instruction: don't let anyone take what we built. Because it's not just land, I told her, it's family, it's history. It's proof that if you work hard and treat things right, they'll take care of you back. And sometimes you have to fight to protect that. Her teacher smiled at me. She was one of Isabella's former neighbors. By summer, the whole incident had become a local legend. People in town called it the time David Wilson lifted that HOA lady's car with the sugarcane loader. Every telling exaggerated it a little more. The car got higher, Isabella screamed louder, the loader got bigger. I didn't correct anyone. Let them have their story. Because the truth was, it wasn't really about the car or the loader or even the fence. It was about boundaries, about respect, about understanding that power, whether it's HOA, authority, or property ownership or anything else, comes with limits. And when someone crosses those limits, repeatedly ignoring warnings and escalating aggression, sometimes the only language they understand is action. I didn't enjoy humiliating Isabella. I'm not that kind of person, but I don't regret it either, because nothing else had worked. Not politeness, not documentation, not legal letters or police reports. She only stopped when she faced a consequence so immediate and undeniable that she couldn't explain it away or lawyer her way out of it. Sometimes you have to show people where the line is by making them face what happens when they cross it. One evening in late August, almost a year after the whole thing started, I was standing by the new fence watching the sunset paint the sugarcane fields gold and purple. The cicadas were singing, the air smelled like summer earth, and everything felt exactly as it should. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Wilson," a woman's voice, hesitant. "This is Isabella Jones." I was silent for a long moment. "Mrs. Jones, I wanted to call. I've been in therapy. Real therapy, not just the court-mandated anger management. And my therapist suggested I make amends to people I've harmed. I see. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know what I did was wrong. The fence, the lies, all of it. I was so focused on controlling things that I couldn't see how toxic I'd become. How much damage I was doing." She sounded different. Smaller. Genuine maybe. "I sold my house. Left Magnolia Heights. Started over somewhere. I can't be in charge of anything. And I'm learning to be okay with that. To let go. That sounds like growth. I wanted you to know that what you did lifting my car, forcing me to face consequences, it was the wake-up call I needed. I hated you for it. For months I hated you. But it was the only thing that could have broken through my delusion that I was right. I didn't know what to say to that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I'll never bother you again. I just wanted to say it once." The line went quiet, waiting. "I appreciate that, Mrs. Jones. I hope your fresh start goes well. Thank you. Goodbye, Mr. Wilson." She hung up. I stood there with my phone in my hand, watching the sun drop below the horizon, and felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but closure. The sense that a chapter had fully ended. The farm was still mine. The fence was strong. The sugarcane grew tall and sweet. And I'd learned that protecting what matters sometimes means standing your ground in ways that feel extreme, but which are absolutely necessary. My grandfather would have approved. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with someone who kept pushing until you had to push back? Someone who mistook your kindness for weakness? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing how you handled your own Isabella moments. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I share stories like this every week. Real people, real conflicts, real justice. Sometimes the good guys actually win, and I'm here to prove it. Remember, you don't have to let people walk over you. You just have to know where your line is and be willing to defend it when someone crosses it. Thanks for watching. And the next time someone tells you to move your fence, make sure they're standing on the right side of it first.